Today we've got another talent tree from Collapse of the Republic. Collapse of the Republic, another talent tree guide and review for the universal specialization, the Nightsister. Now the Nightsisters are from Dathomir. You know what? I really got to sit down and figure out the lore, because the lore was one way. Like Asajj Ventress was a Ratataki, but then they retconned it with the show. She's Dathomirian, but there's male Dathomirians and female Dathomirians, but the male Dathomirians, aren't they Zabraks? But there's female Zabraks. So is Darth Maul, or is Dathomirian more of like a national thing, or so stupid? I have to spend time in my life to figure it out, because that's what my life is now. Great. First of all, I love how they organize this thing. It's like they really liked my videos and they went out of their way to make a tree easy organized so that I can read it better and make more videos quicker. I like to think that the world does revolve around me and what I want. So I'm just gonna assume that this is the case. They did this for me. So thank you, FFG. I appreciate it. I'll take back one of the bad things I've said about you. Okay. One section of the sort of a big chunk to the side. It's very survival and intimidation focused for the most part. And by survival, I mean the actual survival skill, but also like physical survival, just not dying in general in the grand scheme of things in different ways. Then there's also 2 columns. You go down one column, and thematically, it's all about Ichor. You have this like Ichor magic poison, or maybe it's just regular poison. You can modify a blade with poison. And then there's another one where it's more about like force powers. There's a talent that gives you a force rating. It's in the first tier. It's easily avoidable, unless you want to get the force talents early on. Just the way the tree is structured, there are force talents, but it's like a L kind of thing. There's more connection at the bottom of the tree in general, so you have to go the long way to avoid the force rating of 1 talent, which you would ideally want to do, if it's worth it, if you already have a force rating. If you come from a force user background, you have the force rating of 1. A talent that gives you force rating 1 is not going to help you, and no, it does not raise it. I might house rule it and argue for you to house rule it to where you just act as if you already have this talent, which you do if it's in multiple trees but not ranked. You just cross it off as if you already have it so you don't spend the points. Otherwise, you have to go out of your way to get to the force talents to an annoying degree, but it's only 5 points. I don't know, I'm spending way too much time on this. You get the force rating of 1 if you don't have it already, and then you just start making your way down this little area, and you get some really cool force abilities that are great for infusing some all-around forciness into a character that doesn't have it yet, and so perfect for the Nightsister, a non-traditional force user. And so you can use this general force power proficiency to help you debuff enemies, to help you manage your strain, and also to help with your force power checks in general, which I think that's the big one. Whatever force power check you have, which almost certainly will have to be a power. Are there force power checks from talents? Maybe, I don't remember. Get a power and you'll have a much easier time using your force powers. That's a huge one. Probably worth making a beeline down that column. Anyway, the other column, the Ichor Blade column, we have 1 talent where you can choose an item, and it doesn't say it can't be a weapon, so it can be a weapon. I'm 99% sure it can be a weapon. Tell your GM I said it's okay. It can be a weapon, but there are certain requirements. And you can summon this or send it back to the depths of Dathomir, or I guess if you're reskinning this to be just a general force user, to your lair, whatever that is. Talk to the GM, whatever your Dathomir equivalent would be, I guess. Not only does this help you with encumbrance, there's an item that could be really useful to you, but it's reasonably heavy, like a toolkit or something. You just don't want it to weigh you down. At the very least, that'll help you with that, but I think this is meant to be a hidden, in a way, blade. Hidden on a different planet across the galaxy, but it's hidden. Go in, disarm yourself, maybe you have a blaster which is only just for show, so okay, no weapons here. Go into the room, whatever it is, and then, boom, Ichor Blade! I think that's the intent, obviously, is to pair this with Ichor Blade. Bond yourself to a weapon, and then use the next talents to poison it. That's what Ichor is, right? It's like a poison? I don't know. It sounds like a poison. Anyway, it adds some really great qualities onto a weapon of your choice. There are certain requirements for the weapon that aren't here. You have to go to the description. Basically, like low-tech weapons is the idea. But you can apply some really awesome qualities on top of it. There's a basic version, improved version, which is just better qualities. And we have another one that I guess really isn't connected to your blade at all. What is Ichor? What is Ichor? What is it? What is it exactly? Does it say? You can use Ichor, I guess, but it doesn't have to actually be the Ichor blade. You just use Ichor, whatever it is, to manage your strain and your wound. Basically, you can move strain and wounds back and forth between the thresholds. This is really awesome. This can greatly increase your survivability by just shuffling stuff over. You can't do it that often, of course, limitations, blah, 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 but still, you can really expand either threshold, so you're just plain harder to take down, especially if you're straining yourself to do extra stuff. And we also have another talent, which is called Ichor, but again, I guess is it just like a energy you have connection to that's different than the Force, or it's a chemical, or a Nightsister chemical? I don't want to read all this. Someone tell me what Ichor is, especially in this context. Oh, hey Steve, isn't that your job? Shut up! Did I say what the last thing did? It helps you with your force powers. You gain more forciness under certain circumstances with a cost, which when you combine with the other talent I talked about, that's huge. These two combined, it's a great living force battery for whatever power you do, whatever force check you have to do. And the rest of the stuff is more, as I said, normie stuff. Basic grit, toughen, help with the tracking type of checks, very survivalist. Help with your defenses in a passive way. But we also have less boring stuff, especially in terms of not dying. There's a talent which, gotta be brand new, helps you deal with criticals. And I think for the first time, it's critical hit manipulation from a defensive standpoint, as opposed to typically it's a offensive standpoint, like the bounty hunter, martial artist, and so on. You can also double as a pretty decent talker if you're just about being scary, help with talking defense, and also just talking in general. And you have one of those, here's a characteristic that you can occasionally use for a particular skill check with a high cost. Alright, talking about building our Nightsister, it's universal spec, but I typically talk about it in terms of this is the one you focus on, because really what I say depends so much on what you pair this with, because technically it's not supposed to be your first specialization, although you should absolutely take my house rule and make it your first specialization, or be allowed to make it your first specialization if the GM chooses. And this is actually a great candidate for that, because, well, a big part of it is just helping you with your force power stuff in general. Pair this with a force power. I don't want to have another tree involved. Just this and a force power, that's a great tree right there. And you can fulfill the role as a talker, or an intimidation-based talker if you have a strong enough will. And if your GM does it like I do, I like to have different characters be more vulnerable and less vulnerable to different types of talking checks. Some people are just harder or easier to charm or intimidate or whatever else. Maybe coercion, intimidation is not the great candidate for a main talker, but it could be fun. And from a just stat perspective, your dice pools, you'll be a perfectly acceptable talker or support, like the other talker, not a support talker, but the other talker, filling gaps that the more presence-focused main talker doesn't have, or the smuggler who's all about cunning and whatnot doesn't have. Well, paired together, you can make for a decent talking team. So will, I would want pretty high. I would go with a 4 in will. I would also go for a pretty high brawn, just because I like the whole Ichor blade thing, although it's very easy to skip that, especially if you want a lightsaber. This doesn't really help you with a lightsaber. In fact, it doesn't actually work with a lightsaber. It makes the weapon more closer to a lightsaber, more innocuous weapon closer to a lightsaber, but very easy to justify skipping those talents. But yeah, I like keeping things simple. This tree as your first one, because house rules, and also a force power of your choice. Hell, it could be enhance. Be an awesome melee damage dealer, and also, moving around the battlefield or whatever, all that stuff that enhance allows you to do, but mostly you can hit better. That's a big part of it. Be better fueled by this. You're a living force battery who can be good at stabbing people with an awesome weapon, or modify your weapon to be awesome and also have it come from out of nowhere. And you can talk on the side without dying so much, and you will be pretty survivable from a brawn, or like a wound threshold and a strain threshold perspective, because, well, the emphasis on coercion and brawn, everything meshes together. That transfusion talent where you can switch between the two. This is really nice. Pretty simple. The stuff you do isn't as interesting or flashy. It's more just making you better in different ways, as opposed to doing new cool things. But pick a force power you absolutely adore and just go whole hog into that. get some stuff in here to support that. And you'll have a great tree, but if you use this the way the raw rules say, it is organized pretty well to where as a supplemental tree, just focus on one column or one area of the tree to supplement in the way you want to your heart's desire when you want. It's very convenient for that. So yeah, another really, really good tree. It's probably more of a universal specialization, what a universal specialization probably should be, than most of the other ones here, which they just feel like really good trees unto themselves. But yeah, great tree. Next time we are going to talk about the the shark senator, the Sharkinator. See you then.